there be light. Ah. Actually, that wasn't a good idea. I blinded myself. Hello and welcome to Walking Movies. It should be called Nick After Dark. Nick at Night. The pun was straight there, wasn't it? So I told you I'd be back with another review fairly quickly, and I am. And tonight even, as you can see from the darkness around me, I am going to see Godzilla -1, which is the 37th entry into the Godzilla franchise. Can you believe that? Amazing. This will be a first for me as well, because I've never seen a Godzilla film at the cinema.
Hello.
So that's great for me. And also I've never seen a film in Screen X, which I'll also be doing tonight. I think I've talked about Screen X before. Screen X is a cinema that's set up so it's got like the main screen at the front, and then both walls have screens as well that they project onto. It sounds very weird, and because it's a premium format, I've never felt the urge to pay for it. So that means I've never seen the film. But tonight I'll do that. I will be watching Godzilla in Screen X to see what that is like. So I'm walking all over the place. Like it's really blocking me. Now, growing up, I was a massive fan of Godzilla films. They used to show them late on a Friday on Channel 4, and every week new Godzilla film, all the original ones, and that include things like Godzilla versus like Mecha Kong and stuff like that, Mothra, just the good stuff. So I stopped my recording there by accident. All the good stuff, all those classic original Japanese Godzilla films. So growing up, I was a big fan. I was a big fan of King Kong as well when I was little. So I've always liked, films involving giant monsters. But I've not caught any of the more modern Godzilla films that have been made in Japan. I have watched the MonsterVerse films that they've been making over the last, I don't know, however many years now in America, where you had Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then finishing up with the smoke, Kong versus Godzilla, that came out quite recently. But these are the American versions of Godzilla, which have been patchy. I mean, obviously the least popular attempt was the '98 film, which I've never seen. And the more recent ones, starting with, I think it was 2014's Godzilla, have been much better received and not bad films. I mean, the first Godzilla was fine, wasn't the best, but I did enjoy King of Monsters. I like Kong versus Godzilla, and there's a new Kong versus Godzilla coming out next year. I think it's called King Kong X Godzilla. Well, they're going to tag team up, which is great. But yeah, so I don't really... All I know about this film is it came out in Japan beginning of November. It's come out in America already. Comes out here on the 15th of December. Critically acclaimed, both in Japan and in the USA, which makes it sound really exciting. So, you know, when this came up as like an early preview, I thought I can't afford to miss it. So that's what I'm going to do. Oh, it's a secret police car, undercover police car. I wonder what's going on there. But yeah, so this is going to be my first big screen Godzilla, and I'm hoping it's a great film. So that's all I've got to say about it so far. I will see you on the other side. Now, a few days ago, my wife asked me if I was going to be doing my top films of the year. And I said, well, no, it's not the end of the year. So, no, of course not. not until the end of the year will I do that. That's because there's still more films to go and see. And tonight was definitely one of those reasons. Because, no hyperbole, Godzilla Minus One might be my favourite film of the year. And I'm going to talk to you about it once I get home. Cliffhanger, but I've got a lot to say, and I also want to give some props to the stars of the film as well, which I don't have access to at the moment. So, I'll see you when I get inside, where it's going to be warm and I won't have a bright light shining in my face. Wow. Yeah, that was a hell of a film. So I wanted to talk about it when I got home because I need to have access to the people behind the film. And I'm probably going to get these names pronounced incorrectly, but I'm trying. That's the main thing, right? So it's directed by Takashi Yamazaki. What's this guy done before? Nothing that I've seen. Wasn't surprised by that, but still. Did Space Battleship Yamato though, which I have heard of, and Lupin 3 the Third. Why at first? Why have I heard of that series? I don't know. But regardless, so someone that I wasn't familiar with. There was no one in the cast that I recognised either. But Ryunosuke Kamiki was the lead character. Koichi. Fantastic. Everyone in this film was great. No matter how big or small their part was in the grand scheme of things. Like, they were all really good. Minami Hamabi as Oishi. What I love about this film was how layered it was. And her character is a prime example of that. And I really want to talk about it, but I also don't. Because when I was going to see this film, I didn't see any trailers. I didn't read any reviews. Didn't look anything up. I'd seen people talk about it. A few people I follow in America had seen it and said it was really good. And that was it. I didn't go in with anything more than that. And I'm not saying that if you don't go into it blind, you're not going to enjoy it. But I think the less you know, the better. And it's a really interesting story because it starts off just at the end of World War II in Japan. And I've seen lots of depictions of events during World War II. I mean, Oppenheimer, right? And that was just this year. But you don't see much from Japan. I know there are some war films about... Obviously, there's war films about what happened in Japan during the war. But you don't see many things like that. And that's where this film starts. And it covers a number of years. And it's just so interesting how they've framed this. I mean, it feels like a Godzilla film, but so much of it is based on the people of Japan that have just come out of a war, effectively to enter a new war with something that is beyond belief, and how they cope with that. But it's about more than that. It's about the trauma that they experienced of the war. It's about those that survived the war and what they saw, what they went through, and, you know, now what they're experiencing and how they deal with it. I just wasn't expecting I don't know what I was expecting. I knew from the -1 title, I knew that this was like a origin precursor film to other Godzilla films that we'd seen, but this was not the film that I was expecting, and I love it all the more for that. It really was the biggest surprise for me this year in films that I've seen. And like I said earlier, when my wife was asking me about films of the year and stuff, this is why I try and leave it as late as possible, because there are films that kind of come out towards the end of the year. Especially films that they're trying to, kind of drum up interest for the Oscars. And I'll tell you what, this will no doubt be the submission for foreign language film. Personally, it should go for Best Picture. In the same way that we had this with Parasite a few years ago. This film is just so strong. And I cried more at this film than I think I have at anything else that I've seen at the cinema this year. Which again, I was not expecting. But because of how these characters have been developed and what they go through and what they've experienced, and you're watching it all unfold, I was completely immersed in the film. The film is just over 2 hours. What was it? 125, I think? 125 minutes. So just over 2 hours. It didn't drag. It's a very similar length to Wonka, which I saw yesterday. And that film did drag. This did not drag for me at all. And it's definitely up there with the best. I was just having a little kind of like preview think to myself about what I think, without looking back at the films that I've seen this year, what are the films that I think are probably going to be up there. And obviously Barbie and Oppenheimer are going to be up there. And Across the Spider-Verse is going to be... No, was it Across the Spider-Verse? Yes, Across the Spider-Verse. Is going to be up there as well. And so is this. And, I've said a few times, Spider-Verse is going to be hard for me to top this year, I think. It's the film I've watched the most from this year. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. And I've loved it every time. But if that's the case, this is probably the best live-action film I've seen this year. I'm just so shocked at how much I enjoyed this film. Let's talk about some negatives. And the negatives do not affect this, not to do with this film at all. No. The negatives are me seeing this in ScreenX. Now, ScreenX, as I mentioned earlier, is you've got a screen at the front, the main screen, and you've got 2 kind of like side screens. And I don't know what to expect because I've never seen a film in ScreenX before. But what I got was this really weird kind of panoramic thing. So at certain points in the film, it's only certain points in the film, they've obviously filmed it with a different camera, or they've filmed extra content, whatever. But it didn't line up. It didn't line up. And on top of that, what you've got is you've got the screen at the front, and then you kind of got like this gap, and then you've got the screens on the side. So it's not like concave or anything like that, which would have helped because you do get this kind of this block. But it wasn't lined up. So you could see that there was a good inch or 2 from where like the screens should kind of join as close as much as they can. And they didn't. And it was really off-putting. And it also made everything look a bit weird as well, or a lot of the stuff weird. And then, to make it worse, at one point the screen to the left, like the left wall, it just froze. And then after about 30 seconds, sped up to catch up with what it had missed, as if someone had hit like fast forward on it. And then the worst part of it was that whenever you did get the two side screens happen, because of how, I don't know exactly how it works, but I think it's just small projectors kind of project into the walls. But they obviously emit light. And what that did was it made the main screen darker. Like when you go and watch a 3D film. And if the film hasn't been adjusted for being in 3D, that's what happens. Like the picture gets quite dark. And people complain about it. But this wasn't in 3D, this was just in 2D. But every time those sidewalls came on, the main picture went dark. And it was really annoying. And the extra two screens did nothing, added nothing to the film at all. So I will say this, it was my first time seeing a film in Screen X and my last time. If James Cameron only releases Avatar 3 in Screen X format, or a film that I really care about is only released in Screen X format, then I'd go, if that's the only way I could see a film. But in terms of premium formats, absolutely not. Not worth the extra money. Just added so little to it, it's untrue. And it actually annoyed me that that's how I'd seen this film. Now, it is my own fault because there was a 2D screening, I think, set up after the Screen X one had come out because it was full. I mean, not every seat, but a good 80-90% of the seats in there were full. So they did do a 2D one, but I'd never done Screen X before, and I did have to pay for the upcharge, so I thought I'll just give it a go. But no, never again. Do I recommend this film? Yes. Should you go and see it in a premium format? Also yes. If you can see this in IMAX, or maybe 4DX would be really fun as well actually, then yeah, do that. Don't go and watch it in Screen X. But do go and see this film. Do go and see it at the cinema. And go and enjoy yourself, because this is, you know, without a doubt, one of the best films I've seen this year, if not the best film I've seen this year. I cannot get over how much I enjoyed it. To the point, it makes me want to take Wonka down another point, because I just realised how, when you compare, and you can't compare them to completely different films. And the other thing as well, which I didn't mention when I was talking about the director, this had a budget of like $13 million. It looks better than nearly every big budget blockbuster I've seen this year. By far. It really was an impressive feat. So, yes, go and see Godzilla -1. Have yourself a time. It's just amazing. So go and do that. Right. I think the next film I'll probably go and see is Aquaman. But I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll go and see it, and I don't think there's anything coming out before that. There's a few films coming out over Christmas, though, which is strange that they're kind of top-loaded Boxing Day. They've got The Colour Purple coming out. The Boy and the Heron comes out. Ferrari comes out, which I don't really like the look of. I'm sure there's something else that I'm missing as well. But yeah, so could be busy again over Christmas. Who knows? But thank you for watching, and until next time, just remember that Flynn lives.